Hi,
Ready.
everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Last Weekend Local for the week ending September 23rd. I have no idea what day or date it is. Last week was
9:23.
9/23. Last week was Local University Advanced in Denver, and it was a whirlwind week with a lot going on, but I think it went great. What do you think, Mayor? I thought it was
Oh,
awesome.
I thought it was the best advanced local U yet, and we had a sellout crowd, so it was really fun. And it seems like local geeks just can't get enough of networking because
Yep.
SEO Beers, Matt Lucasta and Dan Liebson added a networking event that was very well attended.
I agree. I think that, and a lot of the feedback we're getting via our forum and things are people, that was what people valued almost the most of everything. The networking was top notch at local university. So I'm super excited to see what the next one brings. Speaking of the next one, our big announcement, Joy's taking over as CEO of Local U. I'm super
Joy
excited for that.
Hawkins,
Joy Hawkins. Yep.
Sterling
Um,
Sky.
I'm super excited for that. She's got lots of great ideas and, more content, marrying it up a little bit more with the forum and her guide and Sterling Sky. And I think there's a lot of great stuff coming. A little bird told me there'll probably be an East Coast event sometime early next year, maybe early-ish next year. We're
Yes,
hoping.
and we're also have a pretty good idea that we'll be having a West Coast event next year around this time.
Yep, that's kind of the tentative plans. So keep your eyes open for that for sure. So that's all local U news. What about what else is going on, Mayor? What do you got?
So at the Google official Google Webmaster Central blog, they're saying that there's fresher data available in your site's performance reports now. And in my opinion, every little thing that Google tells us in Search Console is worth checking out. You might look at it and say, oh, that, I didn't really need that, but you should at least check out the things that Google wants to tell you.
I
And
think
now,
it's a good indicator from Google of what's important or what we should be considering important.
right. And now you can get day-old data instead of having to wait for your data. And you can choose your own dates in reports, in search performance reports. So to me, that's a big deal.
I agree.
And I think that a lot of people have tried to ignore the fact that Google's got a new interface in Search Console, but I believe that they are shutting down the old interface, that you're going to be forced into the new one. So you might as well become familiar with it and learn how to use it.
I agree. I think there's so much stuff in there that people are just not taking advantage of, for sure.
Yes. And I think that being able to show things to clients that Google says, these pages on your site are not indexed, these links on your site are broken, that sort of thing has a lot of impact. Being able to show them that Google actually reported this.
Yep, for sure.
And then speaking of Google, some folks listen to every word John Mueller says on all of his hangouts.
About everything.
About everything. I just like to hear the news from other people. I can't take the whole thing. But Deep Crawl reported via Twitter, with mobile-first indexing, Google will only index what it is able to crawl on the mobile version of the site. So if there is important content on the desktop version which is not available on the mobile version, this will not be indexed. And I think this is something that really needs to be driven home with a lot of small businesses, because they may have either webmasters who are not really keeping up with changes, or who just want to do the easiest thing. And sometimes the easiest thing is to remove a page from your mobile site.
Or to strip them down, like strip things out that might be important in a crawl, like content or content behind tabs or content in collapsible expandables or images. I mean, to me, it sounds like we were talking about this in the pre-talk, that images that aren't served on the mobile version of whatever is served up to your customers, whether it's via AMP or you just strip out images, does that mean that the images aren't getting indexed? And could image search help you out? Maybe, possibly. I think that it's definitely worth taking a look at for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Google's all in on mobile. We need to be all in on mobile.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to realize that our mobile sites are now actually more important than our desktop sites in most cases.
That also ties back to what you were saying about Search Console, and when they send you messages that say your clickable elements are too close together, or it's having problems with pages or elements on your website, especially in mobile, you need to pay attention to that stuff, because I think that, those are indicators that Google's having trouble crawling a mobile version, and that could cause a problem. It's definitely something to take care of.
Most definitely. Then, if you're in local search, you definitely know by now that Google has said it's taking away your stars.
Mm-hmm.
If you've lost stars or afraid of losing stars, you really need to read this article by Mike Blumenthal and Aaron Weike of Gather Up, and stop stressing over it. Mm-hmm. Just because the stars are, well, first of all, Joyce said she was testing this last week at Local U and hasn't seen any of her clients actually lose stars. So maybe this is a false alarm. But
I don't necessarily, because Guy with Attorney Sync has seen stars go. I've seen a few instances where people are showing how stars were there and are gone now. I think it's going to happen. I think it's happening. I just think it's maybe rolling out way slower than people anticipated.
Okay, then read this advice from Gather Up so that you're prepared if you do lose your stars.
Yeah, I think there's so much more benefit to reviews than just stars in the search result. Like, there's way more to consider.
Yes, there most definitely is. And what was Aaron saying about donuts?
He says don't throw out the donut because it doesn't have sprinkles anymore because the sprinkles fell off. I think that's a really good metaphor for there's a lot more to it than just stars. It's about, confirming to a visitor to your website that you're a company they want to do business with. It's about understanding where there might be flaws in your business or in your product and fixing it. Like, that feedback, that first party feedback, is still super important. It just might not be something that's going to get you stars in Google. And there's some things you can do to kind of mitigate that, like getting stars in other sites. What other sites are on your first page of a branded search where you don't have stars? Go get them. There's still a lot of things you can do to kind of mitigate that loss on your own domain. You can still get stars on third-party domains.
And you can still put stars on reviews that are on your website.
Sure.
Even if they won't show up in the SERPs, so that when people come to your site, they see them.
Yep.
Then lastly, Damon Rollison wrote an article at Street Fight Mag arguing that channels are the new citations. And this is a concept that, citation building has really lost its relevance, and that we should be thinking of the local network as a series of channels, not necessarily a site where we go to get citations.
Sure.
And he has a graphic on the site that is rather explanatory. I just wish he had labeled all of the icons on the site because some of them are not familiar to me.
Yeah, and there's some, like, he's got Foursquare on here as a location database, but I think they're an aggregator as well. So, I mean, it certainly gives a good visual for kind of what things are in what channels. But like you said, some of the icons, I don't know what they are, like the red hands. I don't know what that one is. navigation service. Is that like TomTom or something? I don't know what that is. Anyway,
Probably so.
maybe one of those. Anyway, labels would be great, and maybe just a few more arrows, because I think some things are a little bit more complex than he's got them on here. I know the chart was inspired by one that David Mim did for the local search ranking factors slash ecosystem chart that he did, and Darren has taken it over. It's sort of inspired by that, but I think it just needs a little bit more clarification, but it's a good start for sure. And it's a good I think it's an interesting concept to explore, especially as we start saying that citations, or what we know historically as a citation, is not nearly as important, but that doesn't mean that you don't need to be places, right? You just need, it looks different now, how you need to be there and where you need to be. So definitely an interesting article and concept, I think.
And over to you.
Oh, okay. So I read this morning, kind of sad, a little bit scary. Thomas Cook, which is like the oldest travel agent or package trip planner in the world. They've been around since the 1800s, collapsed. And basically, anybody who is currently on a vacation that was booked by Thomas Cook is stuck where they are, including thousands of people stuck on Greek islands all over. Apparently, the article I read said that there are 600,000 people abroad on Thomas Cook trips right now, and more than 150,000 of those are British citizens. So there's this like big push by the UK government to repatriate them, to try and get them all back via, charters or commercial flights or whatever. But it's really sad to me. I mean, like 21,000 people found out that their company was going under online this morning. They were meeting, trying to get money as early as as late as yesterday afternoon, I guess. And it just didn't work out. And they say part of the problem was a $2.1 billion debt pile that made it really hard for it to respond to its more nimble online competition. And Mary, you mentioned in the pre-talk how much of that online competition is just Google controlling the search results for anything travel related, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm surprised that the article didn't go into that a little bit deeper, because the way Google has taken over travel online is pretty stunning. I mean, it's
the article that I read was the article I read was in AOL. And so that's US based. It might be interesting to read one that's UK based. They might be a little bit more willing to point the finger at Google than maybe something here. I need to read a few more articles about it just to kind of get a wider perspective of it. But I think it's really sad, and it's sort of I don't know, is it a harbinger of what's to come with the online travel space? I think that travel agents have been phasing out for a long time, and now with every query, there's the ability to DIY your trip and maybe save some money. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from this. I guess Claire Carlisle was telling me that the all-inclusive package vacations that they sell are kind of like the old standby for UK family vacations. Like, it's a big deal there to not have that available. So we'll see what happens in the future. But it's kind of sad that all those people are stuck trying to get home, stressed out. I can't imagine. And all the people with no job today because they just kept going further into debt and didn't try and fix it sooner, I guess. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. The other thing I came across was a webinar on SEMrush that was called Show Me the Links, and it was hosted by Julie Joyce and had Giselle Navarro and Claire Carlisle on, and they talked all about building links for local businesses by creating fun content, by generating press for a local business. Lots of great tips in there, so I definitely recommend checking that out. Links for local businesses is a little bit different animal than just link building. It's a little bit harder. A lot of times you're working with a very limited budget, so you have to get quite creative with what works and doesn't work. Mary and I excuse me, are big fans of sponsorships, where it makes sense, and when there's a passion project that you can kind of connect to the business as well. I have a client that's really big into the MS walks. That's kind of their annual thing, and they're a neurologist, so those things go hand in hand. So when it makes sense, there's a lot of creative stuff you can do. Sometimes it doesn't even cost money. It might cost time, which that translates into money, but there's a lot of opportunity out there. So I definitely recommend taking a look at that webinar. Jelly Bean Agency out of the UK put out this really cool article about getting started in digital marketing and what kind of advice would the seasoned professionals give to somebody getting started in the business today. And I actually think there's a lot of great advice in there for seasoned professional as well. Things like test, don't be afraid to fail, be humble about what you know, and as you learn, share what you learn. I'm not a big fan of that's proprietary information, or I'm not going to give you that info unless you pay me kind of attitude. I'll just give it all away. I mean, just because I'm talking about it doesn't mean they're all going to do it. That's kind of my philosophy. So, but I think it's a really great article. Definitely something to kind of save for your interns and entry-level SEO people, digital marketing team for sure. And then right before Local U last week, Noah Lerner, who's out of Boulder, I think, right, Mary? Announced that he built a Chrome extension that can help SMBs and agencies manage Google Q&A via the Google My Business API. And what I really like about it is it's not packaged in with a suite of other tools. If you just want to try it out, you can try out the extension. It's free to use. I know he would welcome your feedback if you run into anything. It's really interesting to me. I've got it loaded into my browser. I haven't played with it too much. I'm still playing catch up from last week being gone. But I really think that there's some cool possibilities with this type of tool, not just from a, hey, we can manage this kind of standpoint, but from a pick and choose what tools you need kind of standpoint. I think that's really interesting.
Yes, because rarely do you find an entire suite of tools that you think every piece of it is best in class. So you end up having to subscribe to a lot of different tools and pick out the pieces of each one that you
and that gets pricey, right? Because this one's $100 a month and this one's $100 a month. And then, we do audits. So we use a lot of tools, and I'm using this tool from this one and this tool from this one. And then I kind of take that and I stick them together using this tool, and it's a pain in the ass. I'm not going to lie. So I like the idea of just being able to get tools a la carte as well as tools in a package if that's what you need, if that's what works for your business. So I'm definitely going to check this one out.
Yeah, I think that, the future, the immediate future is bright for people who are going to make tools that integrate with Google Data Studio.
I agree. And then the last thing I have is an article. Again, I've said Claire's name a lot. She's been really busy. The week we were all at Local U, Claire was over in Wales getting busy with local search. So good job, Claire. She was interviewed by Jamie Pittman for a new series they're doing over at Bright Local called Local Legends, which I think is super interesting. It's a really great interview. It's worth a read, worth a watch. It's actually videoed, and there's a transcript there. And she talks about, what's coming up in Maps, what she thinks the future of Google Maps is going to be. And she also talks a bit about setting expectations with local clients, as she works with a lot of SMBs with limited budgets. And so she's really well versed on kind of how to manage that relationship. So I think it's a great interview. We love Claire. She's super smart. Lots of good insight in that interview as well. So worth a watch for sure.
So are you finished?
I'm done.
I have one I forgot.
Okay, go for it.
Greg Sterling also did a good article about citations called "Which Local Citation Sources Matter Now?" And we found that a lot of knowledgeable SEOs have really not updated their knowledge of the
Mm-hmm.
impact and the value of citations. And so Greg did a survey on from the pros on their opinions about citations, and that's definitely worth a read. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, for sure. I think we saw that last week at Local U. There were still a lot of people who were kind of old school in their citation thinking, or there was actually one guy there that was trying to get tips on how he could convince his bosses that charging their customers for citation management was not the
Yeah,
way
on
to
a
go
monthly
on a monthly
basis.
basis, like a recurring charge. So, people, it's time to update your definitions and your understanding of what works and what doesn't work. And citations is probably at the top of that list. I get it. It's something you can charge people for that's scalable and recurring. And that makes agency bean counters super, super happy. But, when you got to stand in the trenches and not only that, it's going to become a millstone because your customers are going to come back to you and say, why are you keep charging me for this? All these people say this is worthless. So, fix it now rather than later is my philosophy on that. So,
And we're
well,
not
go ahead.
saying citations are worthless. We're just
Yeah.
saying that the environment that citations live in has changed greatly, and the ones that you should be concerned with are not the ones that you will probably have been concerned with.
And yeah, I would say that citations are still important within the right context for sure. I think the recharging the recurring or charging the recurring money for maintaining or upkeep or whatever the hell that's supposed to be for is I think Mike called it bullshit last week. So let's just call bullshit bullshit. So that's what it is, right? So I'm done. Are you done? Is that it? Are we good?
I am. I
Alrighty.
am.
Thanks everybody for
So
joining us for last week in local. Go ahead, Mayor.
thank you. Mike's on the road this week.
Mike's on the
Hopefully
road.
he'll be back next week.
Yep. Hopefully his travel schedule's kind of nuts. We'll see. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.